night in a graveyard. What a wonderful way to spend an evening of telling ghost stories and creepy tales. Good evening, and welcome to W.R. Frady's Friday Night Frights. I'm your host, W.R. Frady, and tonight I have a special guest, Clint Ferguson.
Hey guys.
Clint, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Clint. I've known William here for way back when. We actually met at the building just to our bit, the middle school here in Granite Falls. So we go way back. And this is kind of a special place we're at tonight. It brings back a lot of memories.
Oh yeah. So, together Clint and I would like to welcome you to another night filled with ghost stories, strange tales, the weird and unnatural. Something to call up good stories. Enjoy the Halloween time, or just anytime the spirit moves you. So, grab your popcorn, get you a drink, sit back and relax, and let's tell some spooky stories. Our first story tonight takes us to the small town of Lovelady, an Edwardian Victorian town in a fantasy Catawba Valley far away, where Sarah has stayed up too late playing cards and talking with one of her friends, and then has to trek home using the old graveyard road, the old cemetery road, as a shortcut to get home. And what happens to her along the way? Well, let's tell the story and find out. See, Sarah had stayed out too late. She had been playing cards and spending time with her friend Sally until Sally's mom come up and let them know that it was getting late and they were getting ready to go to bed, to which Sarah was alarmed because she was supposed to have been home hours ago. So Sarah got her stuff, said her goodbyes, grabbed her jacket, and ran out the door. It was a pretty good jaunt across town for Sarah to get to her house, and one that she had wished she had made before dark, but she didn't have that much of a choice now. And so she started her way, and as she came up an old Shadow Birch Road, she got thinking. Shadow Birch Road came out close to her house and cut off a lot of the town she'd have to go through. But that was also the old cemetery road. Well, she didn't get to think about it long, as her feet had already begun taking her down the road. And before long, she was surrounded by the stone pillars, the engraved stones that stretched out on either side, much like the ones you see in the ambiance here when the light shows. And eventually a hedgerow and trees that come up and canopied overhead. She had been walking for a little while when a wild dog howled off in the distance, and she heard what she thought to be laughter coming from somewhere. And as she looked around, she noticed as she came out from underneath the canopy of the trees that up ahead was someone walking along the hedgerow along with her. And it seemed like it might have been another girl about her age, so she kind of hurried up and caught up, because, walking with anyone at this time of night would be better than walking alone. And the other girl met up with her, and she introduced herself as Amber. And so Sarah and Amber began talking and carrying on, and was walking home. Every once in a while, Sarah thought she heard things moving around in the brush and beyond the hedgerows. But other than that, everything seemed quiet. Perhaps too quiet if she would have paid attention. But then again, it was the middle of the night and it was a graveyard. There's not a lot of sound.
Crickets.
Exactly. Well, they made their way to the end of the road, where finally the graveyard opened up back to the stone pillars that led out onto the road, where where Sarah would turn and start down the road to her home. And Amber was right there with her, just talking, walking beside of her, and they were talking about, the different parts of town and so forth. And when they finally got to Sarah's yard, her dog come running down to meet her, and at first, where he was excited, suddenly he stopped short and kind of shrunk back and turned around back behind the house. And Sarah was like, well, that's odd. It's, normally he's very friendly and he loves people. That it must be just that, just late in the night, and he's kind of shaken up as well. So she went up on the porch, and she turned to Amber and said, Amber, I'm glad that I met up with you, that you walked home with me and stuff. I'm not going to lie, it was a little scary to walk down that old cemetery road after dark, and I was glad I didn't have to do it by myself. And Amber just smiled and just looked at her and said, it's okay. I was glad to be able to walk with you. I know how you feel about being scared. Being afraid and being scared to walk like that. I used to feel the same way too when I was alive. And with that, she faded away. Well, our next story goes from the town of Lovelady, which is funny that Lovelady was one of the original names for Granite Falls. Well, one of the original names that Granite Falls was going to be called. But anyway, from Lovelady to our local area. And this next story will be presented by Clint.
All right, everybody. This is a true story. This actually happened. If we were to turn the camera around, you can't see, but there's an old Victorian house in Granite Falls my family owned across from the fire department. And conveniently enough, it was Halloween night. My wife and her brother and I were up there, and we were doing something that you usually don't recommend people do, and that was we were playing with the Ouija board. Ouija, and what other night to play with the Ouija board except Halloween? Excuse me. So we're upstairs. We have the board in the floor. Of course, we're asking questions. Is there anyone here? Are there any spirits? Is anyone here that wishes to give us a sign? Etc. Standard questions when you're trying to contact the dead. So William will tell you, I am 110% the skeptic.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say I do or don't believe in the Ouija board, but it's going to have to really be some convincing evidence to prove it's a telephone for the dead. So we're up there and they're asking the questions, and you got to remember also part of this story is my father used that house as an office. So he had an old telephone line up there, the old landlines, what they called before cell phones. So we're upstairs, and of course, me being skeptic, I say, oh, if there's any spirits here with us, give us a sign, being kind of skeptical as I'm saying it, like, okay, whatever. And the split second I said, give us a sign, the phone rang downstairs in his office. And this is before cell phones, this is before social media, nobody knew we were up there. This was like at 2 a.m. This wasn't somebody playing a prank on us. This was legit. It freaked me out as a skeptic. So naturally, I'm the one that has to go answer the phone now. So it's ringing, pitch dark, ringing, taking each step going down the steps, keeps ringing, and it's loud. It's one of those old-timey phones. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to say? I mean, if it's a ghost, hello? Can I help you? So I get downstairs, and it's ringing, and that was the most scary feeling I had in a long time. So I get to the phone, it won't stop ringing. I pick it up, And naturally, it wasn't some voice from the dead that said get out or anything. It was just nothing. It wasn't a dial tone. There was something still on the line, but it was nothing. So I sat there for about 30 seconds, then I hang the phone up and I go back upstairs. And naturally, they're like, who was it? And I say, I don't know, but they probably weren't from this realm. So yeah, I can't explain it. Nowadays, I would say, okay, somebody's playing a trick on us. We told somebody we're going to be up there. They said, hey, watch this, we're going to call up there. There's no way, the hole in that story would be, there's no way somebody would know to make the phone ring at the exact second that I said, give me a sign that you're with us. That's impossible. Cell phones, sure, somebody could just call it after they say that, but no, this was 25 years ago or more. So yeah, as a skeptic, that kind of convinced me, okay, well, you might not want to mess with Ouija boards.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that story I've learned to call, no pun intended, the call.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that story. We had a little bit of fun too while we was telling it. Like I was just telling Clint, as he was telling the story itself, even as we're talking now, there's a slight breeze blowing. The temperature has literally dropped within the last couple of minutes from the moment he said, show us a sign. The tree above me was showing just a little sign of movement, but it's only the tree we're under that is moving. Any leaves whatsoever, yeah, that is moving. So that adds a little bit of eeriness, which goes back to what I was telling you, like when I was over at Mom and Them's, and the camera took my hand signal, except my hands were down here, and it signaled beside of me.
It started recording it.
And it started recording while me and Crystal were talking this way. And but yeah, so sometimes these little story episodes become their own ghost stories, and that's also what makes it fascinating. I can't wait to do the Chapel Arrest episode to see what happens there.
Yeah, I remember us going up there and doing the EVPs.
Oh man, Chapel Arrest. No, I told the story last night about the EVP.
I still have the EVP from I got when I was up there.
That's wild. I'll tell you again about that EVP that happened to me, because you might remember me talking about it back then. But yeah, anyway. But our next story, sorry we got off a little track on that because of things that were going on. But the fun of doing an episode in the graveyard. Speaking of doing something in a graveyard, our next story is an adaptation from a favorite group of ghost stories, which is the Scary Stories. It's called The Girl Who Stood on a Grave. You see, Allison was the town skeptic, and people were always telling her, you don't step on a graveyard, when you go through a graveyard, you don't step on a grave, you don't stand on a grave, you don't, she was all these rules, and she's like, that's hogwash, I don't, ain't nothing like that going to happen. It's like, well, and she kept going, her friends kept telling her about these things, and she's like, man, there's nothing, I'd stand on a grave and do this. There's nothing that's going to happen. I mean, it's just a bunch of made up at your imagination. It's all just child's games and no wives' tales. So finally, her friends got tired of her being a skeptic and says, "All right, since you seem to know so much and you're sure that nothing's going to happen, here's a knife." They handed her a pocket knife and says, "Come back tonight, go stand on one of the graves, tell us which grave, and then plunge a knife into the ground and leave it sitting there, and then we'll know that you come out, you did what you said you were going to do, and we'll not say another word about it." So it was all set. She was kind of flippant about it. But when the sun started setting and the wind was starting to blow out of the west, it was time getting dark, and it was time for Allison to go do her part of the dare. So she went out. It was, by the time she got to where she was going, it was getting good and dark, and she waited. And when it was about dark, like you're seeing now out behind us, she went out, she found the old unmarked grave and walked over, and she was looking around, and a chill was kind of getting to her, so she just kind of wishing she hadn't got herself into this, but she just stuck the knife down into the ground, and it stuck fast into a root or something, but it was there. And she got ready to turn around, and she started to walk off, and then something was tugging at her dress. And the more she tried to pull, the more it wouldn't pull. She tried to rip it and everything, and it was, no matter what she did, she couldn't pull loose. And she was screaming, and she was crying, and just, she kept on pulling. Well, the night passed, and when her family and her friends couldn't find her the next day, they decided to go up and see if she was on a graveyard, still in the graveyard. Because they thought that something had, they were convinced that if you stood on a graveyard, something would come up and grab your leg and hold you there. Well, the girl, they went up and they found the old unmarked grave, and there Allison was laying dead on the ground. She had taken the pocket knife and stabbed it through her dress and had pinned it to a root underneath the grave. And when she was trying to go, she had gotten so scared she thought that something was trying to grab her that she died of fright in the night.
Oh, okay. So her mom played tricks on her.
Exactly. It was one of those times when the anticipation of an event was actually worse than the actual event. Which often makes you wonder sometimes, what's more dangerous? Fearing what's in the dark, or the actual fear that you act upon of what's in the dark?
Probably the latter.
Tell me.
Definitely the latter in a place like this.
Yes, yes. Our next and final story tonight will be turned back over to Clint, who will pick it up from here. Clint?
All right, everybody. First of all, I want to explain to you something. You've probably watched the video and you see me constantly looking around. There's a couple reasons. The main reason is we're in a graveyard. I think most people are going to have their head on a swivel looking around. And also with me, I don't like having my back to anything. And then normally there shouldn't be anything behind me because it's just a graveyard. But it just still feels like there's somebody watching us.
Yeah.
And also another reason is there actually could be like actual real people out here. I don't want to just walk up on us. So yeah. I don't.
Well, it also comes as a part of your profession. So
yeah, I don't think. I mean, I'm not. Every time I turn my head, I don't hear a ghost or see a ghost because everybody's like, "God, Clint's scared to death."
That means you can go back over and
yeah.
now.
I'm joking. Yeah, it's just habit. I'm just constantly checking it out.
Yeah,
because I mean, you can see the light here, but it is actually pitch dark.
Yeah, it is real dark.
Yeah, literally soon right behind us is pitch dark. 360, can't see anything. We're out here in the middle of the darkness. So this next story it's not really like a ghost story per se. It's just a true experience, again, like my last one that happened. And this actually happened even closer to where we're at. If you could turn the camera around, this happened probably 300 yards from where we're sitting at on the road on the other side of the graveyard. There was a police officer. This happened probably 20 years ago, maybe a little more. So the police officer was just patrolling Granite Falls like normal, and there's actually a road where we've got this tripod set up that you would drive through just to check the area, and it connects down the other road.
It's also the same road used for the church and for the hearse passing.
Yeah, because when I work night shift, I would do the same thing. I mean, I kind of, I would like driving through the graveyard at night. I mean, that was my other benefit of doing it. But yeah, right behind here, the main road, he was driving through routine patrol, wasn't looking for anybody, just normal business. And this was probably, 2, 3 in the morning, and it's literally, like, you guys don't understand, it's literally right behind us on the street. We are exactly in the spot. There's some apartments on the other side of the road and a couple houses, and then it leads to the wall where this graveyard is. The wall is probably, I don't know, 6 feet high, and then you're up here in the graveyard where we're at. So the officer's rounding the corner at the middle school right here, and he's driving down the road, and all of a sudden in the middle of the road there's a little girl. She's probably 6, 7, 8, and he literally has to swerve to miss, and he doesn't wreck or anything, so he kind of moves out of the way, swerves back and stops. It's like, oh man, what in the world is it a runaway? He's thinking it's just a runaway kid. They ran away from home and they're lost. So he turns around and he's not thinking anything paranormal. He's thinking, I gotta get this girl to her parents. So he immediately had stopped the vehicle and turned to look for her, and she was gone. Now the important part of this story is she had walked from one side of the road across the street, and she was in mid-stride to walk to the other side of the road where the wall was, and the wall was probably 3 times her height, if not more. So she didn't climb up the wall, she literally vanished, because he literally swerved, missed, stopped, and looked, and she was gone. And kind of like in the Silent Hill intro, if you remember that game, the intro, that's the same thing that happens. The ghost girl's in the middle of the road, and they swerve and miss, and she's gone. So that's exactly what happened. And after that, this guy was not, I'm a skeptic, but I still believe in the paranormal. But this guy was not, he was not into anything like that. And he would not make this up, So that's why it was a little more, eerie to hear him tell what happened. And still, to that day, he didn't work too much longer. He still would refuse to drive down the street at night. He wouldn't go down this road at night. And there's actually a house here in town, the museum house for the town of Granite Falls. I'm not going in that house at nighttime.
No.
And that's a story for another day, as
tell
Conan
me.
would say.
I'll have to hear that story.
Oh yeah.
Sounds like some fun.
So that was it. It's like I say, it's not really a ghost story. It was just a supernatural experience, because obviously when something like that happens, we lock it down, we go look for the child, we go talk to the neighbors. Nobody in the neighborhood reported their kid missing, so there was no kid missing. The kid did not belong to anybody around here. The kid just literally disappeared. Boom, walked across the road, gone. So, and it's right there. You guys understand, it's literally 300 yards from where we're at.
Yeah, in other words, we're looking right at it. There he is.
And she was running towards us.
All right. I'd like to thank you for joining us again tonight as we wrap up this last set of stories. It has been an amazing night in the graveyard. Matter of fact, we got something we got to go check out right here as soon as we do. This is W.R. Frady. I want to thank you for joining us again here tonight.
There it is again.
We look forward to seeing you again next week as we tune in for another round of ghost stories and weird tales. So thank you for joining us, and we will see you again soon. Have a good night.